Kelin,
Hi.
it's been a little while since we
Yes.
were able to do this. How you been?
Good. How are you?
Good.
Good. Did you have a good weekend like days ago?
Yeah.
What day is it? Wednesday?
Today's Wednesday.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's good.
Yeah.
Exciting.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
Yeah. What are you talk about today?
Huh? What do I want to talk about?
I'll give you first strike.
I don't know. You seem pretty pumped, and I don't have anything I'm really pumped about.
Okay.
Except, I don't know. Like, this is a political thing. And again, I don't think it's going to be very long conversation.
Every time you say that, we go 6 hours on something.
Probably not. But
Okay.
I keep seeing all these people are up in arms about all these pardons, these Trump pardons.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know who the Chrisleys are?
I don't. I know nothing about them.
I keep seeing, and again, disclaimer, I have not researched if this is true or not, but I'm seeing multiple different organizations reporting that Trump is going to pardon Chris Chrisley and his wife. They had a reality show, Chrisley Knows Best, for a long time, but he is exactly. He made his money. I don't even know, real estate, maybe. I'm not even sure. He's kind of flamboyant, and so their whole family was, and so they got their own reality show, and they were in Atlanta, Georgia, and they had all this money, and it was almost like a Southern Kardashian type thing. Well, both he and his wife went to prison for like tax fraud or something like that. And rumor has it Trump's pardoning them, and they're going to get out soon. And I'm like, why? Like, from what I'm seeing, he's just like, you get a pardon, you get a pardon, you get a pardon right now. And I'm just like, do you know anything about that? I don't.
I could just give you on principle.
Okay.
All right. So we're going to use the make something great again. Okay.
Yeah.
So here's the deal. When you start effing around and giving people pardons, right?
Yeah.
You start a template, you post a template, right? That everybody just gets pardons. So let's make pardons mean something again, where if someone's caught up in some kind of political something and they didn't break any kind of rules and whatever, issue the pardon, right?
Mm-hmm.
But since we broke that mold, then you just give pardons away like they're candy. Fine. Department of Justice. Let's either go after people with the Department of Justice or don't go after people with the Department of Justice. If you want to go like who started the whole targeting people using the law enforcement at your disposal, or giving out pardons to people who don't deserve it, or awarding Nobel Peace Prize to somebody who doesn't freaking deserve it. Okay, fine. This is the origin of the conversation. Let's not use any of those mechanisms for political anything, or do it and just go crazy with it. And then we're at the let's go crazy with it stage. So who to blame? Every freaking stupid political person on the planet bastardized something that should be virtuous and noble.
Wait, they made something political for their own gain?
Yeah, and then so everybody's clutching their pearls, like institutions of government are using for political ends. The stock market, people who are voting on laws that govern industries make money on it. Yeah, we're gonna come to a conclusion where you've got people that are serving themselves, that are using the institutions of government. I could have told you that 10 years ago that that's what people are doing. So you can't like take one thing and all of a sudden say, oh, aghast, right?
Yeah.
Like they're using institutions of government for themselves. Who would have thought that was going to happen? So yeah, okay, fine. If we want to do that, let's make institutions great again.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And one of the things that even kind of got me thinking about the whole pardon thing and how everybody's getting a pardon is we had talked a while back about pardoning Derek
Chauvin.
Yes. And so I saw a news headline the other day, and it read something about, I can't even remember. It must have been about him, or there was not an event, but I don't know if it was something was going on regarding George Floyd.
Yeah.
In the public. And the headline was highlighting this thing so many years after George Floyd murder. And I went, murder. And I kept thinking about that. And I said, I feel like regardless of which side of that issue you're on, even if you're on the issue of like, he used excessive force and Floyd should still be alive and all this stuff, that's still not considered murder, is it?
It's not.
Murder's like premeditated.
Of all of the pardons, he's the only one that actually deserves it based on the spirit of what a pardon's supposed to be, because he got caught up in a political movement where he was over prosecuted, right? That's the only one that
Yeah.
applies. All these other Hunter Biden and these people, none of it applies, but we're giving them away as candy to people who don't deserve it. And a dude that's sitting in prison, which is still going to be in prison, even if he's pardoned, but that one mathematically formulaic equals who should be issued a pardon.
Yeah,
It blows my mind. It's so stupid.
It made
So
me
stupid.
so angry again about the bias of news organizations. You could have ordered that after the death of George Floyd, after whatever. Even if they said like homicide or something, any other term I would have understood. But when you purposely use the term murder, I'm like, that doesn't apply regardless of whether or not you think he used excessive force, he was right or wrong. Did Floyd die of a drug overdose? Did he die because you were standing on his neck? Doesn't matter. It wasn't murder.
Right. Yeah, in order to prove murder, you have to show intent.
Yeah.
Did he show up that day
plot
thinking
this out
that I'm going to kill this dude? No, it was manslaughter at freaking best.
Yeah.
All right. Anyway, let's not go down that rabbit hole. But yes, we take these little instances of what should be a principle, and we micro get outraged at something, and people like me sit back and say, "You're all being stupid."
Yeah.
Like it's
like, what agenda can I push, and can it benefit me? And then
this part I'm opposed to, but the rest of it I'll just let it blanket it. Anyway, don't get me. I was pissed off for different reasons today.
All right.
I don't want to be pissed off about
we'll
this one.
Your reason.
All right. So you own a house, right? And you probably haven't owned it long enough in this area to see how much real estate has increased over the last 10, 15 years.
No.
It's insane. So
I believe it.
So I bought my house in 2012. I paid $200,000 for it. It's worth $500,000 right now. Wow. And so in just over a decade, it's more than doubled in price. Okay. Yeah. And what happens is, I'm thinking like the first house that I bought was a $40,000 house, and it was a starter house. Everybody did that. You bought the house that needed fixing up, and you lived, a while until you can afford.
Now is my third.
Yeah. So you and I looked up my starter house, and what do you think it cost? $40,000 when I bought it.
Where is it?
It's in Struthers.
I'm sure it's at least 100.
Yeah, 120,000. Huh. So the price of housing has tripled in the last 15 freaking years.
Yeah.
Which means that if you're starting out and you need to live somewhere, obviously, houses are pretty much out of the question. If you're using 50% of your income to buy a house, like even what would be considered a starter house is no longer considered that. And apartments and condos and whatever, the demand is so high on that, they're equally as expensive for having a little apartment. So I want to talk about solving this issue. And what the heck, I talked to my kid, I interviewed him this morning, and I pitched him this question. Like, you're going to be buying a house within, let's just say in the next 10 years, and everything is incredibly unaffordable. What are you going to do? Like, how are you going to remedy this and rectify this? And he didn't have an answer how he's going to do it, but I started pointing out the problem. So I'm going to point him out to you, and I want to interview you on this. Oh, God, so okay. Why did housing shoot up the way that it did?
Why did it?
Yes.
I feel like there are multiple reasons for it. One could be the lack of.
Yep. So the demand is way higher than the supply. What? Yeah. Okay, so let's stop in each one of these points. Remind me to go back to the other reasons. Okay. So, why? Let's just say you were a home builder. Two types of houses. Companies that basically build templates of homes, and they build 10 of them, sell one, build another, and they just companies that actually are in the home building business and then you have custom homes where people just go build their dream house and whatever. I want to talk about the people who are responsible for creating the supply of homes and we're not really going to talk about the ones that people just buy it outright and they don't go through a home builder. So what would cause you as a speculative real estate investor to front money? What would work against you, and what would make you want to do it?
What would work against me would be like cost of materials.
100%. So I went number of years ago, I was offered some land bank properties, and in this area, they were vacant. They were cleared and leveled. They were ready to have a house situated on a perfect scenario. Little, single family dwellings would fit perfectly on this. And I was offered it almost for gratis, right? And all I'd have to do is provide the materials, build the house, and sell it, and it would have been a new single family home. The materials cost to build the house, right, was more expensive than what I could actually purchase. So if it cost me $120,000 to build an $80,000 house, would I be likely to spend more to build it than it would sell for?
Not if it's going to be
zero. Like there's no, I passed on a free property because there's no way I could build it for no way I can build it less than it would cost, or that I could sell for. And so that's number one. So if I'm a speculative, if materials costs are too high, nobody's building it. What's number two?
For why
you're a speculative investor. You're going to decide whether or not to build a house or build more homes or not.
Can I sell it?
Okay.
Like, is there a demand in that price range?
Okay, so there is a demand, but if you look at home prices and they're at an all-time high, and you buy or you build it with thinking that home prices are here, but you're expecting a bubble to burst, foreclosures to happen, home prices to plummet, guess where you'll be? You'll be right where I was before, which means I bought it at today's materials cost. And when I go to sell, like it takes 8 months to build a house, right? Yeah. Or maybe not that long, but let's just say it takes 8 months to build a house. Do you think the home prices are going to stay where they're at for 8 months? Okay. So that works against the speculative real estate investor. Number one, materials costs are high. Number two, that we're at an all-time high and home prices may come down. And so I'm going to wait and see when the bubble bursts. Number three, interest rates. What motivates sellers to be able to get financing? Are we in a climate where it's easy to get loans, or are we not? Are interest rates pretty high right now?
I haven't looked recently, but
they're pretty high. They're not low. They're not high, but they're
not like they were, but they're not where they maybe.
Okay. So your supply is 100% of building new homes is devastatingly anemic right now.
Yeah.
All right. So let's talk about homes that exist. Who's buying the homes that exist? Here's the first catalyst that started contributing to this problem.
Yeah.
Airbnb, right? People would buy houses to rent them out, and they can make more money on renting them out a couple times a month than somebody being a renter in it, right? Two, foreign investment. Other countries, they stow their money in properties in the United States. They don't even care about somebody there. They hire a maintenance company to make sure that it doesn't fall in disrepair. It's sitting vacant there like a block of gold to them. They're just offshoring it because look at our home prices. They put $100,000 into a home right now. It's worth $200,000 when they go to sell it. Nobody has to live there, right? And so we have foreign investment in properties. We have super high interest rates. We have Airbnb that are willing to pay for a property that does revenue versus a homeowner that's trying to get a loan on something. So you have all of these things culminating, and it is entirely, it's almost impossible for that I'm just getting into the home buying market from competing against all those other interests and what's going on. Lack of supply, competitive bidding from, corporate. So let's start solving this problem now. I've kind of laid out why it sucks.
Yeah.
All right. Now, do you let people from China buy homes in the United States? If you don't live here, should you be able to buy property and homes?
Oh, that's tough. I mean, obviously with there being a problem, I want to say no, but I don't think you can. I guess you could ban that.
Okay. So in order to buy a home here, you have to be a citizen of the United States.
That could be a thing.
Okay. And what do you do with the people who already own them?
You could probably have to let it go.
Okay. Confiscate or forced sale?
Oh, I mean, I feel like you have to let him live there. That's gonna be a big deal. if you're like, hey, I know you've owned this home for years, but you're not a citizen, get out. I mean, that's a move.
Well, or you can make it not a great investment, make taxes on foreign investments high. And so it sort of like chips away at what they think they can make off of the investment. So make it like an 80% investment tax on it, so that you're like, well, I'm not going to take the liability of owning this property if I'm not going to make any money on it. And then that turns it back over into the marketplace. I guess you could do something like that, right?
Yeah.
You look like you want to say something.
I'm thinking about the idea of making a law that like no one who is foreign can purchase anything. I've never really thought about
Well, like, okay, you if you take Florida, for instance, Florida was probably one of the first ones where we saw so much foreign investment capital coming in because it's a pretty safe bet. And if I wanted to build, not even commercial real estate, but residential real estate, like if you build here, it's pretty solid investment. So it's very attractive for foreign interests. So if you take a place like Florida that needs that foreign capital in order to keep developing and expanding, and you cut that off, and only American investors, are they going to be as likely to fill Florida with all of their improvements to replace what now is not coming in from overseas? So you create another problem by solving that problem as well.
Yeah. God dang.
All right. So what about the B&Bs, Airbnb? So you buy, somebody says, hey, I'm going to do this passive income thing where I'm just going to buy a house and then use it as a Airbnb. Now I've taken one inventory, one house off of the market that a family could buy. And because there's so many people venturing into that it's taking inventory away from that. Like if you took all the Airbnbs, how many Airbnbs do you think there are out there?
I don't even know how many in Florida alone. And typically from what I've heard in my experience, people don't want to live near Airbnbs and rented homes and things of that nature. Like if you're in a decent neighborhood and somebody's like, hey, I'm moving, but I'm not selling my house, I'm going to rent it or I'm going to make it Airbnb, your neighbors aren't happy about that.
Because you're going to have people coming in from out of town.
They don't take care of things. They don't.
2.25 million Airbnb listings in the United States. So these are little investments that people have made. It could be, again, foreign investments where people are just, using it as a hotel room. So when cities like Poland decide that they don't want any in their neighborhoods and they make it extremely difficult and ban those Airbnbs, again, you solve one problem where you keep those houses available for people to purchase. But at the same time, now people in your neighborhoods can't make an investment where you're limiting how they can make money and whatnot, right?
Yeah. I mean, if you were looking to move into a new neighborhood and you had your eye on a home and you knew that the house over was an Airbnb or maybe even had renters coming and going, would that sway your decision?
Maybe. And it would lower the property values for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is sort of like there are 90 problems, and this is not a simple one fix type of thing, right? The real goal is if you have to create, you have to lower materials costs. Which how the heck do you do that? When the government does nothing but create inflation, you make everything cost more, right? So it's almost assured that the cost of lumber and all the building materials are going to be more expensive. So you don't really solve that. Interest rates, you can lower those things. But if we do have some kind of economic problem, now you don't have any bullets in the gun to be able to because you use interest rates to rescue your economy, right? You don't want to do that to solve the housing deal. And by the way, just a Joe prediction. The real estate market is going to bust again. 2009 style foreclosures and the whole thing. It cannot. There's such a bubble right now that in a year from now, we're going to be talking about the real estate crisis.
Oh, God. I believe it. I mean, like we moved back here. We got our house it'll be 2 years, I think, early July. And when we were moving back here, we decided to build. We knew materials at the time were pretty expensive. I think they were starting to come down. They weren't like they were, but they were still more expensive. The rates were still not great. By all means, we'd be like, are we insane? Who would build at this time? but it was still cheaper to build than buy an older home.
Yep.
I was like, you're telling me this old house that is smaller, older, and needs so many updates to it is more than the cost of materials right now to build.
Yeah.
Like, that's insane to me.
So my kid recommended this, and I said, that's not going to be a popular thing to say, but almost force the bubble to burst so that home prices can be reduced, but do it methodically and slowly, so that you have to unleash some of this inventory for new buyers, but you also have to reduce the cost of homes, right? And if it busts, then it's going to come back to a normal level, right? But you also wreck the economy and you hurt a bunch of people who currently own homes, right?
Yeah. I mean, there's a house we drive by all the time, and it is a very cute, nice house on a good bit of land in a desirable area. And it's been on the market for a while. We're like, man, why would that thing not sell? That looks like a great home to own. And then you go online, you see the price, and you're like, well, it ain't that great. But yeah, if they lower it, is that then screwing the seller? Probably.
Yeah.
It's like a catch-22.
It is. And that's why I say that if you don't have a road that says, oh, you just start doing XYZ, because nobody's going to do XYZ because of all of the complications. It's almost like everybody's going to sit there too afraid to actually do anything that solves the problem, let the bubble burst. And the natural consequences is, you learn from it and say, let's not let the bubble get created in the first place. Nah. Oh, that's 10 years down the road. We'll deal with that bubble when it happens. It's almost like we serve the same consequence over and over because we're so tolerant of creating the bubble in the first place. And that's exactly where we're at right now.
So it's almost like it has to break.
It's going to break.
It's not going to get better.
Yeah. Jeffrey says the cost of living went up, so did the salaries. I bought my new house from someone in California. He used to rent it, but got a good price for under $80,000. Jeffrey says Canada has all our wood and supplies cement to the USA. So now what we do, it's going to go up more. And then Carter says property taxes are high too, based on what the house is worth. Yeah, property taxes are loving this. And inflated property values mean that more taxes are collected on unrealized gain, right? And so they're in it, baby. And but yeah, I mean the tariff thing, this could not be more ill-timed to have all this happening at the same time. The only upside is that maybe you get that correction and it's not a massacre. Like the foreclosures that happened in the 2009 bubble burst was all sort of like government initiated. You basically took and made a subsidizing home loans to people who absolutely should have never been given a loan in the first place. And so when you had the height of those things, the costs kept going up as the prices went up, and they just got priced out where they couldn't afford it. And then they had foreclosures. So you had a bunch of those foreclosed homes being dumped on the market, and that decimated. All that paper went to crap. Nobody could collect on their deal. The banks needed bailed out. It was a shit show. This time, it's not necessarily foreclosures are going to be tied the same way that bad paper, because you didn't have the government forcing loans that didn't make sense on the market. So you ended that. But like I said, you're going to have a correction. I just don't think it's going to be as big as the 2009 one.
Yeah, I don't remember. Well, 2009, I would have just moved to Georgia and was in an apartment. So maybe that's why I don't know a whole lot about what houses were doing. But did it get better in 2010? That's when I bought
it crashed a lot of connected industries. We paid that consequence for a good 5 years. Dang. Yeah. It was nice if you were a buyer at that time and you had a ton of foreclosed properties that came on the market. They were being sold by banks, pennies on the dollar, not pennies on the dollar, but you 50% of the value of it. So if you were an investor at the time, you gobbled those suckers up. So that would be the good side. But if the people that are going to gobble it up are still the Airbnb and the foreign investment, then turning over those foreclosures into the marketplace isn't going to do anybody any good, because they're going to disappear in the same fashion that they did before.
How about 2020? Didn't something happen in 2020? Weren't people like struggling
to find? What was 2020?
Like, it would feel like it was right at the start of COVID. when everybody was trying to like shelter in place, wasn't
It was
kind of difficult
probably
to-
materials, getting materials to do anything, supply chain shortages and whatnot. I would imagine that. I don't know, but
Yeah. We moved in 2020 to our second house. And I remember, and it was very easy to sell our house, but that could have just been that area. It was a military town, a new unit was coming to the area and they needed homes. So we literally were like, hey, don't even put it on the market. We'll give you what you're asking for. We're like, all right, but by the time we got into our house, we moved in like our new house, March of 2020, and then everything shut down. But I feel like I remember hearing something about it, like being maybe good for buyers, but not sellers, or I don't even know.
So the government option is what I'm most fearful of, because when the regular marketplace doesn't take care of this problem, government intervenes, right?
Mhm.
And New York tried this with rent controls. Do you know much about the rent control side?
Not really.
So basically, living spaces in New York, they were in such high competition. You had way more buyers than sellers, and so New York, they capped off rents that landlords could charge. All right. So couldn't exceed, it was a ceiling on what somebody could charge for a place, which was a cluster and still is. Rent controls never work, but it's great on the consumer side, right? Because if you know that it's capped out, that it's not going to be raised above, it's not going to keep inflating beyond a certain point.
Yeah,
right?
You always hear people say, I got a rent controlled apartment, I'm never moving, kind of thing.
Right. But it's a cluster, because if you're making an investment and you own a company and you cap off your revenue, but you don't cap off your expenses, there's going to be a point where you can't make money doing it. So then would you rather have a landlord that was running a place that did give a person to live, or nobody owns the building and now there's squatters in it and it's just a blight on your community? There's a big risk in rent controls, because who wants to own a property that you can't turn a profit on?
Who wants to maintain it and put any money into it knowing they're not going to see that back?
That's exactly right.
Oh, yeah.
And then the second side is when government starts intervening. They start breaking market controls that make it jacks up the entire industry, because the intentions are good. I mean, everybody can agree on both sides, the private and the public side, that we want to make sure there are products that line up with buyers, right? But it has to make market sense, where nobody has to make a sacrifice in order to do that. The last time the government did it, they inauthentically lowered the prices, and that led to the disaster that came after it. So again, I'm looking at it in all of the traditional ways that you correct market forces, and this one doesn't have any other natural remedy than to just letting it crash and letting, again, keeping some of those foreign investment out that screws up the math on it, keeping some of those Airbnbs from buying whatever, and letting, cities and states be able to say, we saw what it did in New York, we don't want that to happen here, let's just get rid of it in our communities. So it's not a good solution, but it is a solution.
So let's say you're young Joe Danyi, maybe you're a young single guy, you got your first job or whatever, you're working full time now, maybe you graduated or whatever, and you're like, hey, I'm going to the workforce, I'm moving out, I want my own place. What is your game plan to buy a house?
So I would utilize the overlap where I could still live with my parents under their stuff, and get out into the economy as prepared as I could get. Okay. So even if I had to, kids are living with their parents till they're 25 anyway.
Yeah.
Instead of letting them, jack around for that time, they need to be preparing for the increased costs of going out there, searching out industries and jobs that pay them in the strata of the house that they want to buy, and having a plan to do it. So I already know what I wanted to buy and how much it would cost. And I would start preparing myself the very minute that I can start orienting myself as an adult. I would start preparing for that deal. I'm not going to sit around and cry about it. I'm just going to look at what it is. The big thing in an economy, though, is changing of the rules mid-deal, right? Mm-hmm. So if you started planning 10 years out for something, and then the government pulls the regulatory lever and changes everything, you're going to be pissed, because you did the right thing and you were undermined by the controls changing on you, versus the person that did nothing and all of a sudden they were handed an alternative on a platter. We need reward people for proper planning and good math skills and not reward people for not doing the same thing.
Yeah. I mean, I would be. I remember when I was young and I lived with my mom probably into my early 20s. And then even my mom was like, hey, I need some help with my own bills here. Can you pitch in financially? And my brain went, well, if I could afford to help live here, I would just go live on my own. So I did. And I worked 2 jobs. I had a full-time job during the day and I had a night job. And I had a very cheap little apartment and it was just me. And I would be really mad if I did all that. Like, okay, well, I'm living with my parents until I can make this jump. And then I made this jump and I worked 2 jobs to save for this. And then if they were like, oh, guess what? Now even higher.
Exactly.
I'd be like, what do people do? I mean, honest to God. And then I got laid off, had to lose my apartment, was going to Georgia anyway. So it worked out, was with someone. So I had help. But if it didn't align that way, if I were just a single person kind of continuing on my own, what the heck?
Yeah. Well, and see, I think that's we've kind of washed out the purpose of family and what they're supposed to do. They are supposed to look out into the future and the landscape of what is, and preparing kids to sort of like merge into that, to assimilate into what is. So if you're not having these, like I'm having a conversation with a 15-year-old about buying houses, right? Yeah. Every family should be looking out there. You can't like lead them up to that. Just tell them, I don't know, you figure it out yourself, and then figure out when they're crying because they can't buy a house. This is something that's known right now and should be taught right now.
Yeah. I feel like there's a lot of baby steps there too my daughter's she's 11. And she has her own, it's kind of like a little debit card. And it accesses her money. And she is learning, you make money, then you have money. This card doesn't pull make-believe money.
Right.
Like you've got to do something,
that's perfect.
Put it in there, and then you see what things cost. And if that's not worth it, if you want to buy this, oh, I want this lip gloss. Okay. You see how much you have. And when that's gone, it's gone. So is it still worth it to you, or would you rather wait?
That's exactly right.
And yeah, I mean, it's kind of a baby step, but then they start seeing how things work, what costs, how, bills that come into play. I always tell my daughter, I was like, well, right now you don't really have any bills, but keep in mind in the future, when you want to buy that lip gloss and you see, well, I have enough money, you better remember that there are 3 other things waiting for you that you have to pay before you can buy that. So what's in your account isn't really what's in your account. It's about to leave. And she's like, oh.
And I don't mind so much that kids are staying with family until they're 25. I care that they sacrifice some of their adulthood and they didn't become any more capable because of that extra time. They weren't more financially capable. Like if you stay at 25, live in your mom's basement and you play video games and then you just launch later, like that's a total waste of that overlap. Yeah. Where if you're with your family and you start getting into bills and you learn how the world's working and you just needed extra time in order to give yourself a head start while you're going to school and while you're lining up your profession and all of that, that is the proper use of family. I think, most families are brain dead and they don't know that that's their responsibility. And yet, so they're unleashing these entitled brats out there that just complain that how dare this happen because it was dumb parents that put them there.
We were talking to a friend one time and their son just graduated high school and they asked their son, all right, for your graduation gift, which would you prefer? A party, big graduation party, a vacation, or a car? And the kid's like, car. We're like, good choice. Who would not want a car that you have that can take you places that you have for longer, that can get you to work over a temporary party and vacation? And part of me goes, what if the kid would have said like party or something that was like done that evening over a car? As a parent, I'd be like, no, I'm not going to let you make that dumb decision, but who knows? Like maybe people do.
Oh yeah. They totally, like I said, most of these people that are walked into this buzzsaw are doing it because of their conditioning, their entitled behaviors, and what they feel is due to them versus a parent just saying, out there is really hard. There's no gifting. There's nobody looking out for you. You got to be strong enough to provide for yourself and you have to do it. So let me teach you while you're still here, like you're doing with your daughter, the association between, you have to provide for you. And I'm giving you a small segment of training about now you have a connection between what you have and what you can get. Not like, what you can talk out of your mom giving you. Because I've had a couple times too, when, like Ryan would want to go someplace, and he wants to go there because we're paying. And I was like, hey, you're paying for this. He doesn't want to go there anymore.
Oh, really?
Right? So it tethers when you have expectations of what's due to you. When you're the one fronting the bill, it's a completely different association.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've even had moments where, like, my daughter tried to pay for something herself, and I said, no. Like, don't spend your money on that. Save it for something else. Like, I got this. You get good grades. You're a good kid. You whatever. I will buy this for you. Save your money. But she will offer first. And that's typically something small and more inexpensive.
But still, you're creating an association between what you're capable of producing. I'd much rather have a bunch of poor kids that actually know how to create things than a bunch of entitled people that have no connection between getting stuff that somebody else gave them. I mean,
Oh yeah, and my kids are very lucky. They have accounts for them. I don't know what these accounts are called because I don't know anything about investing terms. But they have some money that was basically came from some money we got from their uncle, and it can be used for college, it can be used for a car in the future, it can be used for whatever, like a place to live. It'll be money that is building towards adulthood. But they know this is not here's free money and you don't have to work.
Right.
You will be working when you get this money. You will be surviving when you this will be a very nice blessing that can help in the future. This does not mean I got money coming to me, I can relax. Like, you're not going to get it until I see you're working and things are in your name and you're doing, know how to survive first without that.
I was reading a study about generational success and generational prosperity. Okay. And I got hung up on this morning because do you think, would you consider me educated?
Yes.
Or you would consider me educated.
Yeah.
Now, in this study, they grouped prosperity connected with being educated. Now, do you think if I was part of this group or part of this study that they would classify me as educated or not educated?
By their terms, they would say not educated. I think they're looking for pieces of paper.
Okay. It's important because when you read that saying education equals prosperity, this would be the same as a college marketing to you that if you have a paper on the wall that you are considered educated, and I'm connecting that to prosperity. So I would be missing from the study altogether. If the purpose of the study is to tell the next generation what you have to do to be able to find prosperity and success, and you are missing a complete segment and element from it because of terminology, that seems effed up, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, I have a bachelor's degree. My husband has a master's. He has an MBA, master's in business. And I would bet money that you are far more knowledgeable and infinitely more experienced than either of us about literally everything. Like any topic whatsoever.
So here's the remedy on this, because, all right, if you you have a membership at a gym. Okay. If you buy a membership at a gym, are you considered an athlete?
If you buy a membership at a gym, no.
Okay. So is there a way to gauge athleticism?
Probably.
So if I was doing a study about athletes and health, and I'm like, I'm a researcher, but I'm really freaking lazy. Instead of me finding athletes and measuring their athletic ability, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the gym membership rolls, and I'm going to take all the people on the gym membership rolls, and I'm going to consider them athletes. And then the study is going to be predicated that my sample size were athletes, Planet Fitness members, and look at how healthy they all are. Do you see any math that is wonky in that?
That math ain't mathin'.
Okay. But if you wanted people to join the predicate that would be considered educated, then you would make sure all I'd have to do is go buy the paper on the wall, and now I'm considered educated.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And it's funny, not to make this political, but it's interesting that we saw a lot of that during the election when you heard all these news organizations would say, well, among educated voters, so-and-so is leading.
Condescendingly.
Yes. They're like, the educated people are voting for this person. And I was like, you mean college students? That's what you mean by that.
Right.
Yeah. And they're using that as though we should feel some kind of way about that. And that should have weight behind it. And I was like,
if I went to eBay right now and I bought a black belt and put it around me, right? Could I refer to myself as a karate master?
Oh, God. Yeah, I mean, you could, but you're not.
Right? There are adequate ways to figure out if someone is. So education, it means to draw out critical thinking, to be able to think through things, logically assign and solve problems, right?
Yeah.
Do you think that the paper on the wall taught you how to memorize things or to draw out from you?
Yeah, you probably learned how to temporarily memorize, how to turn things in on a deadline.
So really it would be, the study would be people who are good at memorizing stuff are prosperous. So that if I were to tell my kids like, hey, the study says that if you're really good at memorization, practice that, and then there's a causal relationship to prosperity, that would be adequate. But if I wanted people to buy more subscriptions to universities that are way overpriced, right?
Yeah.
Then I would word it that way so everybody clamors to go buy their overpriced subscriptions so they can be referred to as educated.
Yeah. And I feel like there was a point in time where it meant something if you had that piece of paper.
This is important. You're about to say something really profound.
I personally, I got my degree in 2006. I think I graduated. I cannot recall a single moment I ever needed it or that it held any weight. Maybe once somebody in an interview was like, oh, that's good. I'm glad to see you have that. I don't even know, with the exception of one time I worked for a doctor, so obviously he had some credentials necessary. I don't even recall any other time I had a boss in an organization that even went to college, let alone had a degree.
All right, so why does that happen?
I feel like experience and training and knowledge and who you know holds more weight than that piece of paper.
No, it's a simpler function. Okay, so let's just say we lived in the Industrial Revolution. And there were very few college educated people. So if you had a college education, it carried some weight and you were able to do things with it because there weren't many of you, right? Mm-hmm. You were sought after because you got something that not everybody would get. And you're looking around saying, hey, this college education is a really good thing. I want more people to experience. So you start cutting in more people and lowering the standard of what it means to get a college education so you can include more people into that basket. Well, when you include people in there, then the value of that thing goes down. You've inflated what it actually means. And the lower it goes, if you're like, I want everybody to be college educated. Well, college educated just becomes the non-college educated because it's meaningless at this point. So in order to keep something of value, you don't give it to every person. So it's nice. Everybody wants a house, right? Mm-hmm. It's cool to have a house. Let's make it easier. But then you watch the exact same thing, the value be diminished on something that you want everybody to have, rather than you want everybody to earn. That's the way to keep value in things, is to make people earn it. So making college hard, but then making more people strive to earn the thing makes it more valuable. So we do this all the time in society. We think giving the valuable thing to everybody means that everybody will have valuable things. Let's make the minimum wage $1 million, right? Yeah. And that's going to feel good because having $1 million is good. You're not going to be surprised when the value of $1 million goes down and now $1 million just becomes what you had before because everybody has it. That's just math.
And I like this idea too of earning something, because anybody who has owned a home, a house, knows that you don't buy the house and you're done. Like, there is upkeep, there is maintenance, there is whether it's something that is necessary for the structure of the home or whether it's just aesthetic and it looks nice and it keeps property value up. There is work that goes into having that thing. And it's almost like if you take someone and say, all right, we lowered the cost of this house, now you can move in, and they are not someone willing to work, put effort in, spend money on, what happens to that?
They're going to break it.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It goes down.
All right. So as a parent, Do you want your kids to have it easier or harder than you?
I mean, I want them to have it easier than me.
Okay, you're creating an entitled person who's not going to respect it because you're devaluing what a parent should do, which add learning frictions, making it harder than you had it, so that you're thinking of all the ways that you weren't properly prepared for life, right?
Yeah.
And you want to make those things harder. Like, hey, they didn't do this for me, so I'm going to make it harder for my kids so that they will value it, they'll be good at it, and now they're an actual karate master and not just a dude that bought the belt.
Yeah. And that's the tough thing is, as parents, it's like,
Why is it tough?
We don't, I mean,
Why?
I don't think you'd find a parent that says, I want my kid to suffer. But
No,
it's
no,
necessary.
no. That's an improper jump.
All right.
All right. So okay. So here's the deal. Your kid wants to eat cake, and you want them to eat nutritious food, right?
Yeah.
And if they get what they want, they're going to be unhealthy.
Yeah.
You as the parent are going to make them do something that's not enjoyable in the moment for the future version of them, that they're going to say, I hated you when I was doing it. Now, if you can weather them being mad at you because you made them eat broccoli, right? Then you're doing the thing that's parent. If you don't want them to be mad at you, you're going to let them eat cake and let them hate you later on.
I had a very small example of this last night. We had already eaten dinner. My son is a very picky eater, and dinner is a fight every night. And I have said, I'm done. This is what dinner is. You take it or leave it. And ultimately, like he does every night, he comes back after dinner, is cleaned up and put away, and he's like, hey, can I have some cereal? No, buddy. No, we're done. We're done with cereal. We're done with your Lunchables. We're done with junk. That's not a meal. Here's your option. Do you want some of this? Do you want some of this? You're not having sugar for dinner anymore. And he's like, can I have some of this? And he got some ham. And I was like, yeah, you can do that. If it's sugary cereal or some ham, by all means, eat the ham.
So do you feel like
I was sad at the time, but felt good about it.
That's what you would just lump in as, I don't want my kid to suffer. Having what they want when they want it means that they're going to suffer. I'm saying, and add enough frictions in there, we're learning that this isn't like I'm torturing them. I'm doing something mean just to make sure that they're unhappy. Yeah, I'm delaying their gratification for later. They're going to be mad in the moment, but appreciative later on in their life. That's the kind of frictions and making things hard. So if I went up to the university and I went to the bursar's office and say, I want to apply at this, and they told me no, and I had to go home and work harder and I had to achieve it, I'd have more respect. If I walk up to that door and they're like, come on in, you're included, don't even have to apply, and we're going to pay for everything, the likelihood that I'm going to take that serious is diminished because it was easy, right? I'm not going to respect it or value it.
Yeah. I had here's a very small parenting win we experienced yesterday too, that I don't know. I loved hearing this. So the busing situation is a mess right now because half of our town is under construction, and buses came very early yesterday. Nobody was prepared. My daughter missed the bus. The kid down the street missed the bus. Like everybody did because nobody knew what time the bus was coming. Well, my husband was available. He took my daughter and her friend down the street to school. And when he picked her up later that day, and again, she's only 11. He's like, she looked at me and said, thank you so much for taking us. That was really nice of you. And I was like somewhere in our stressed out parental journey of, are we doing anything right or wrong? Our kid knew how valuable that was for your parent to stop what they're doing, take you to school. It's not their problem. It's your problem. Even help your little friend down the road, and said, thank you for doing that. That was
they
really
appreciate
nice
it. That's awesome.
I was like, how do we do more of that? How do we get more?
You have to be meaner. You have to be angrier.
You do.
You have to create more frictions.
You have to learn that it's not a given.
That's right.
Of course,
because then they'll start demanding it.
Yeah, of course you're going to take me. This is your job.
That's right.
Of course you are. Like,
and that is the point.
They realized I'm not owed anything. That this was something nice you did, and I appreciate it. Like, ooh, how do we get more of that?
Exactly. That's the conditioning you need. Jerry says, get a politician to stick their neck out and get property taxes back to what the purchase price was without the increase to unrealized gains. It's also unrealized gains that have also push the values up in the market. That would be a start, because government spending then creates the more inflation, and you just have this cycle of, with Jerry, like, what entitles them to more tax revenue based on an increased value when you didn't sell anything yet. How are they entitled to it? But the insatiable thirst for taxpayer money, right? And the insatiable act of spending that money creates more liability to the taxpayer, which means that you have to even pay more. So small government, less taxes, property. I don't even know. I go back and forth on whether property taxes should exist at all, because of those 65-year-olds who paid off their house a long time ago and still have to write a check to the government for services. I'm much more on the side of this is, I hate this. I freaking hate this. All right, let's talk about apartments, because I heard this complaint a lot over the last almost a year now. So you're a landlord and you own a property, and at the end of the term, you can raise rents on that property. And you look at all of your expenses, your taxes, your insurances, everything, and then you adjust the rent of the people who are staying there upward, usually. Mm-hmm. Now, the people who are living there, the only thing they see is that something they were paying $500 for is going to $800 for. And they say, this landlord, they didn't make any improvements. I don't see him more often. I'm not getting any more value out of this. Why is my rent going up? Mm-hmm. And it creates some animosity from the people who are extending this. Now, if those insurances, taxes go up, if the liabilities go up, you almost have to. So if you're making $100 on a property before, your costs go up, you have to raise the rent on those end users, and then you get an inflation. You get less money that they can spend out into the marketplace. So what are you feeling on landlords raising rents on people?
I mean, it's understandable as long as it truly isn't a situation. Do you think there ever is a situation where the landlord's like, I'm trying to get you out and I'm going to keep raising to put the squeeze on you? I feel like that's not the norm. The norm is the landlord's costs go up, then the rent has to go up.
How do you differentiate between that? So this is sort of like marketplace. The way that marketplace functions is if you do that, if you raise the rent on someone, and someone else is waiting in line to pay that amount, they're happy if you kick the person who is willing to take less. So we had an example. There's a vendor, and there were two people that wanted to buy the thing, right? Mm-hmm. And the thing was $50. And the one person was like, hey, I really only want to pay 30. Do you think the second person should be like, hey, I'm willing to pay 50, give it to me right now? Or should that person stay out of it and let this negotiation happen first before they chime in and say, I want it worse than this person and I'm willing to pay more? Now, if you're the vendor, it works out in your interest that you take the bid from the person that's willing to pay more. The person that started the negotiation, that was trying to whittle that down, they got punished. And the next time they make an offer on someone, they have to consider that there are other people that are willing to pay more. And you better hold the line if you really want it and be willing to pay with the market instead of chopping out someone else for making money. Because on every side of every transaction, there's somebody who's going to benefit from it, even if you are the loser in it.
Yeah. I feel like that's sort of, there's a side to the government, I guess, that has this mentality of, instead of making other things work or make sense, we'll just penalize this person. Well, if they pay more, then we don't have to. If they whatever, then we don't have to. You know what I mean? And it's like, but what?
But consumers understand this when they're at the beneficiary of this. When they're employees, they understand the value proposition, but they all of a sudden don't understand it when it means like, I'm a landlord and there's a guy over there that's willing to give me $300 more. And I'm going to go to that guy because he's willing to give me more, versus what do I owe the person who's paying less that's standing in front of me? Right? The relationship would be depending on which side of the transaction you're on. And like I said, a good functioning marketplace solves this problem, but then the government interferes and changes the math on the transaction. I know those were a lot of words. Sorry.
Why do you think they interfere and change it? Just to make themselves look good, to sort of like give a win to a certain side that they want to have a win with?
They pick a favorite. So whoever will vote for them is the one that they want their support on. And it's easy to grab consumers and hate the billionaires. And it's just, that's going to happen every single time. That's why they should stay completely away from it.
Wasn't there something something during COVID. It was like, didn't Biden put some sort of cap or something on what you can charge? Was it rent or was it something at the time? And everyone's like, what the hell? Like one group was like, great, thanks so much for the, you cut us a break. And then the other group was like, you screwed us.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There were, you couldn't raise rents during COVID, but there were a number of other things that they capped it off so that for sure. But on the marketplace, you can raise things because you have a person standing in line waiting for it. And that's the way that it absolutely should work. Krista says wages are stagnant throughout all of this. Yes, exactly. When government gets involved and the marketplace can't function, it means that wages stagnate because of controls, because of regulation. If somebody's just free, unfettered to be able to pursue prosperity, then they go to the ultimate length of that prosperity. If you govern it, like you're the landlord, you stifle that incentive. So we talk about prescription medicines, and everybody wants the innovative cycle of medicines while also capping the incentive to benefit from innovating those medicines. You can't have it both ways. Either you're going to have medicines that are free and nobody's exploring to make it better, or high costing medications and we're trying to solve that problem, right?
Yeah.
So if people want to make more money, you have to deregulate and stop siphoning all the value from the commercial side and plopping it in government where the value just erodes and disappears.
And then don't you feel like sometimes people just say, oh, well, then just raise wages. Well, minimum wage is too low. Let's just raise that up then. And then, but you can't just do that either.
Waterfall it out. What happens if you raise wages? Consumer products get consumer products and manufacturing and every industry gets more expensive. And then when you go to buy something, it's more expensive because the labor was more expensive. And you're like, I make more, but everything costs more. So you didn't do anything. You have to create value authentically. You cannot maneuver an inauthentic value and then be surprised where everything just recalibrates to the new value. It's stupid math. It's like mystery math.
Working for a small business and they're like, hey, instead of making $15 an hour, I want to make $25 an hour. But you don't have 25 worth of business coming in. You're just now a bigger expense going out with nothing else coming in. So now prices have to go up.
That's the landlord quandary, right? You're something costs you more and you're not getting any more value for it. So the whole predicate of this conversation is that when you're teaching your 15-year-old what adding value is, they have to have a good relationship with it, or they won't understand that what you do affects 20 other things around you. And you're going to be totally confused, right? When you think you're changing the math, but you really aren't.
Here's another conversation we had with our kids. I might have told you this one already. I don't remember. We were sitting at a restaurant one time. It was like a little sub shop kind of restaurant. And we were eating our lunch and they had just had a big lunch sort of rush. And when it was done, we were sitting there eating. Everybody was out of line. Everybody was out of the restaurant. The workers kind of had a minute. And we sat there and we pointed out to our kids, we're like, look what the workers are doing. And they were on their phones. They were standing around talking. And I said, look at this restaurant. And they said, yeah. And I said, what would you be doing right now if you worked here? And they're like, getting ready for the next rush. And I said, right. See how that garbage can is overflowing and needs taken out? You see how their counter needs wiped down? Refill the napkins, wipe up this spill over here, wipe all these tables down. And I said, rather than standing there talking, you go and you prepare yourself. And they said, yeah. And I said, why? And they're like, well, maybe I'll get a raise because I'm a good worker. And I said, maybe, or you'll get to keep your job. How about that? And I said, make yourself valuable. Make yourself a good employee because they can easily be out of here. Make it so you're not easily out of here and that you know what you should be doing at all times. I think a lot of people, like you said, have this mentality of I'm owed this. I did bare minimum. I did this. So you owe me now. And it's like,
So Krista says, I agree with you, but then greed runs rampant. Okay. Yeah. This is interesting. What is greed?
Greed is wanting more, an excessive amount. It's never being sort of satiated. It's like,
That's not what greed is.
okay, you tell me what greed is.
All right.
Those are
So let me give you some options.
Greed. Okay.
So is greed people who have more than you are greedy?
Not necessarily.
Okay. People who have more aren't greedy.
Yeah.
So if you were to pick somebody out, is Elon Musk greedy? And how would you decide?
I don't know him personally, but I don't think so. To me, greedy is like you take and take and take. Like you can't get enough. You want more. You'll squash someone else to get more. You want what's not. You want more than what you even deserve or what's owed to you. Like greed to me is I don't know. I almost associate it with this sort of like insatiable appetite for getting more.
Well, let me give you my definition, and we'll look it up to see what the socialists have put on Wikipedia.
Okay.
So greed to me is when you deprive or leverage someone from what they want. Greed would be, for me, stopping you from getting what you want would be greed. I'm going to insulate what I have and stop you from getting what you want. That would be greed. So having more than you need, that would be gluttony, which is a complete different vice, one of the deadly sins, right? Overconsumption of things means that you cause injury based on what you have. So if you deplete your health because of overconsumption of food, or you deplete your relationships because of overconsumption of gossip. And so let me look this up because I'm kind of interested, because I bet you what you said, having more than you need, then I could go around to
not just having more than you need, but not being fulfilled, like wanting more no matter what you have, if that makes sense. Like this insatiable.
Did you just describe every person that lives in America? Really? Has anybody ever get to a spot and then so it can't, the definition can't be all encompassing. If it's going to be a vice, it's got to be a different segment of the population.
I have a feeling it's going to be a little bit of what each of us said. Intense and selfish desire for something.
There you go. My definition.
Or food. I mean, it's a little bit of both.
So selfishness, meaning that insulating for me and depriving from you is what greed is.
I had the intense, you had the selfish.
So if a company decided to create a product and they sell it, is there like if I make $1 per product versus $1,000 per product? And if I have people willing to pay me $1,000 per product, do I owe them to make it $1 per product? Do you know what I have a choice for in a regular marketplace? To let other people create that product for much lower. So I have a Rolex and I have a Timex, right? Mm-hmm. And the one that's $1 over cost, somebody who's really good at mass producing something sells it for $1 because they can sell 1 million of them, versus Rolex, where there aren't as many buyers, but they have to, make sure they're really good so that the 5 people that buy them, feel like they're getting good value. Both people in that marketplace think that they got good value. The person that bought the premium. Now, we don't get to go and intervene in there and say that this person made too much money because they're greedy. Is Rolex, is Lamborghini, is any premium brand, are they greedy because they charge more for a product? So long that you have lots and lots and lots of other people who are willing to sell you and compete for it. So if you have a hamburger place that's $10 for a hamburger, and you have a hamburger place that's $3, neither of them are greedy. They're both satisfying the segment of customers that they want to satisfy, right?
Yeah.
So I get that, like every human being is greedy, and there has to be a pressure that pushes against that greed. All right. What is the pressure that pushes against greed? Well, if you're not greedy, you want to deal with people who are also not greedy. And when that person isn't getting rewarded with sales because of their greed, then the people that are being encouraged by your patronage because you're not greedy, that's how the marketplace works.
So Krista says, when you get a business report and see leadership making 300%, but the bottom level employee's wage doesn't change, is that not greed?
It's not greed.
Because let's say the leadership gets this 300%, whatever, and they're making this. The employees are making a certain amount. They get more money in, but the employees' responsibilities have not changed. They have not started working harder. They have not done anything to bring in more business. They stayed status quo. Do you still owe them more money? Or
well, there's no relationship.
Why would I give you more?
There's no relationship between the two. They're not connected. One is not predicated on the other. They're both. If I had a,
so it's not like they're making the higher ups money.
They're not the same.
Like,
it's like I have a chef and I have a server. They're not connected. They're doing two different things.
Yeah.
So the relationship to one another, like this chef makes 70 and this server makes 30. There's no relationship. They're doing two separate things.
Yeah. Yeah. So the lower level employees are handling this.
So
the higher ups are.
So here's where it would be great. Here's what here would be great. If the server couldn't become a chef by doing different things, that'd be great because they're being kept out of becoming a CEO. So if you like what CEOs make, go be a CEO. Do all the things that CEOs do. Become a CEO, and then you'll make what CEOs make. Like this kills me every time because we create this false relationship between things that aren't the same, and somehow say in a company everybody has to make the same. That there doesn't exist anywhere.
So when she says the responsibilities always increase, so it could be like you said, one's a server, one's a chef. Business got busier. Servers now have more tables. Chef has more food. Did your responsibilities increase? Sure. But are you the same thing? No, you're still not the same thing. Is that kind of what your point is? Well,
pricing should be increased in supply and demand. Mm-hmm. If you are making $20 an hour, right? And if I were to replace you, I have someone sitting in line for $15 an hour, right? When you say, I want more money, you can say that, negotiate it. And then you say, well, I do this, this, and this. And I go to the second person in line saying, what can you do? Right. Mm-hmm. And if that person can do everything you can do, and they're willing to do it for 15, I'm going to say, I'm going to actually say $5 an hour. This person's going to do everything that you said you were going to do. And then you're just going to switch spots. You're going to be in a line somewhere else trying to make whatever you wanted to make there before. There's no obligation besides a commodity or something that you're buying and what you're willing to pay for it. If I'm willing to pay for it, I'll say sure. If I'm not willing to pay for it, I'm going to go to the next person in line. That's the negotiation. There isn't anybody that gets to intervene in that transaction. Everybody's free to ask for more, and somebody's free to pay less. And that's how everything goes.
I feel like there was wasn't there like a fast food restaurant or somebody made a statement back when we were first talking about raising minimum wage to $15 an hour. I feel like there was a restaurant that was like, hey, base pay is this with an opportunity to move to this. How do you do that? Well, you start off at the counter, then you learn how to work the fryers, then you learn how to do this, and then you start working on schedules, and that's how
become
you
more valuable. You become more valuable, and then the person off the street can't be that. They have to take the 2-year step back. Now you are more valuable. You ask for it. If they feel you're valuable, you get it. That's how every transaction. Consumers know this. We know when we're getting a good deal and when we're getting a bad deal. We just know it.
Yep. Jeffrey says Elon Musk is greed.
Not greed.
Not true.
Not true. And we're talking about Elon Musk here in a minute. The responsibilities always increase. Sure. And the efficiencies that you get when you add a place, you get better at it. So you can take on more workload. And remember, it's a replacement value. So if what you're doing is super uber specific and there's not a line waiting, you become more valuable only because there's a scarcity in that specialty. Don't do something. And this is, again, talking to your 15-year-old. All right. Do not become a commodity by not specializing in some. Making yourself replaceable means that you're always going to have that fight where you're going to, complain that somebody's making more than you when you're so replaceable because there's 1,000 people just like you.
Like in that restaurant example, when we were showing our kids, could somebody make what those kids over there standing around are making? Absolutely. They could be replaced in a day. They could get someone in that does, can you work a counter? Can you take an order? Can you make a sub? All right, you've been replaced. But I know this employee is going to keep the place clean. It's going to make sure we're not held up because we're out of everything. It's going to make sure that our next rush is prepared for. Like, make yourself valuable.
Exactly. That's what you need to teach kids is don't demand it because you think you're entitled to it. Not all the evidence of comparison of other people. It's you and whether or not you're valuable enough to fetch that thing. And if you are, you'll get it. If you're not, you're going to be replaced. That's just no consumer wants to be treated like that. 100%.
Yeah.
And the stock buybacks, companies need to create value to attract employees. These are two separate issues. Do you know what stock buyback is? I'll explain it real quick.
Okay.
All right. So when a company does capital improvements or they're financing a part of their company, they issue stock. People pay for the stock, and the company uses it almost like a loan. It's basically, instead of going to bank for a loan, you're going to the public invests in it, and then you turn over revenues back to your stakeholders. If you grow the company, stock becomes more valuable. They get rewarded by the increase in value. So when companies do really well, right, what they do is they buy stock back from the public market. So people, I'll buy it from you and I won't give it to somebody else. I'll buy it company held stock. So guess what? You know what that does? If 5 years from now, we have a downturn and I need to raise more money to build another facility or hire more people or do more capital improvements, I could take the stock that I'm holding onto, sell it back, and guess what I get? New revenue to finance. So I'm basically, when things are good, you're buying back stock. You're not leaving the debt on the marketplace. That's a loan that's sitting out there. So when they buy it back, they're almost making principal payments. So in the future, they could use that stock. If I'm a company and I have $1 million worth of stock issued, okay, I have two choices. Either have it owned by me so I can reissue it somewhere in the future, sell it on the market to be fun. Or if you're holding my stock and I issue brand new paper, what does that do to the stock that you hold? Cuts it in half.
Yeah.
So I have $1 million worth of stock and I issue $1 million more, right? I dilute the stock that's on the marketplace. So it's actually, it's not a windfall. I mean, it's a windfall for the people that own the stock right now, because when the institution buys back the stock, they're buying at a premium and the stock price goes higher. But the company needs the reserves of being able to issue that back into the marketplace to grow the company. So the second part of companies need to create value to attract employees. Yes, by buying back stock, they're creating value of expansion. You're telling your employees that in the future, we are going to be growing by using this stock to make more advancements in our product, in our facilities, in the machines that we buy, and whatever. That's the relationship you have between those two. And that it's true that you need to create a value to attract employees. That's a two-way street. Mm-hmm. Okay, so if giving and they did studies on this, whether or not a employee felt value based on compensation was the lowest attribute on that study. Giving money to people, like they make a stink about it and they complain about it, but that's not really why they hang around. It's money's the lowest on the study. So
yeah.
Let's see. Kelin said earlier in the show, what if I work 2 jobs and do everything right and still can't buy a home? Where does change need to be enacted, especially since wages haven't climbed at the same rate as the cost of living?
Where does change need to be enacted?
What do you do? Why are wages depressed?
Because things are expensive and cost to do business is going up, and people need to be able to afford to keep their business open. And so there's probably not a lot of money for wages when they got to pay to stay in business.
So we have this game of chicken that happens. It either happens intentionally or it happens unintentionally. So consumers are in control of this, by the way. Okay. Yeah. And it requires consumers not be greedy when they spend their money, because the purse strings are the most powerful purse strings. So if you have a company that has higher labor rates, right, and you have a company that has lower labor rates, which do you think are a more expensive product?
One company that pays the labor high and the other is low?
Yes.
I bet you the one with the high labor rates is probably more expensive.
Yes. It's more expensive because their labor costs are higher. Mm-hmm. So then when you're Mr. Consumer and you have like a sort of like a social agreement with it, if you like higher labor, then when I spend money, I'm going to reward people who pay their labor higher. And then the people who are paying lower, like, hey, what about me? And you say something like, hey, up your wages and I will be a good consumer. The problem is the consumer are self-interested and they want to pay the lowest amount. So I want you to pay them high, but I'm not going to support you because your prices are too expensive. I'm going to support this dude over here, give them all the business. And then the guy that's paying up is like, what about me? Like, I'm doing exactly what you said. I'm paying them higher. All you got to do is come support my business.
Yeah.
But again, the game of chicken is who acts first. Do I make the high labor, trusting that the consumers are going to reward me because I'm willing to do it? Or I just know the consumers are going to go the lowest dollar because when I spend lower, that means I have more money. And that means I am benefiting from the lower, even if it means supporting lower wages. Somebody's got to make a move.
If you're going to shop online because you can get it so much cheaper than in person, then don't complain that people aren't making enough money around here.
But that because those two things aren't connected, you'll watch a restaurant that's a premium restaurant go out of business and say, how did that happen while you're eating your McDonald's, right?
It'd be interesting to see too, people that say, oh, I think minimum wage should be higher. I think we should pay people more. I think all these people that I deal with on a regular basis should have a higher wage. It's interesting to see how often those people would see something like a tip jar at a Starbucks or at a restaurant or whatever. Like, how much do you tip? Do you tip every time? Do you say to yourself, this person should be paid more? And here I'm giving you more of my money. Do you put a bunch of money in that tip jar or do you not? Because I bet you they don't.
But what would be helpful is if businesses that you patronize shared with you what the wages were for the people who are working there. And then you can decide if you want to support high labor costs. That'd be super helpful for the consumers to know if the people in their communities were being compensated X, I'm willing to pay more to support that. That's all that we really need to happen. So thank you for that question. Krista, that was, let's see, what was the second part of that? The cost of living and the connection. You don't ever want wages to be tied to cost of living. You do not. You want it to be the social contract between enterprise and consumers. Consumers, through unity, decide what they want and what they don't. If you don't want foreign products, you can control whether there's foreign products in here. Just with getting together with everybody else who felt like you do and deciding that you're not going to buy any foreign products. And then when the foreign products come on the shore, there's nobody to buy them, so they stop showing up on the shore. And everybody's in your community that's hammering out those products in their garage, and you're buying them, are going to make more of those products. You can solve the problem through unity. But if the consumers are greedy and they're self-interested and they're entitled, we're just going to look upward to government and saying, just give us all your virtue. And we're asking people who there's no virtue in them. They are not going to provide products that do what you want them to do. They're going to do products that they picked a favorite and rewarded the people that will vote for them. So it doesn't work.
Yeah, they're going to say, oh, continue to find the cheapest rate on something, continue to buy foreign instead of locally made so that you can save a buck. And then when you're like, well, what's happening with our local economy and our wages? We better go ahead and tax so-and-so over there.
And all you got to do is cast them as the greed. And
they're the greedy one.
Jeffrey said, if the narrative was, let's make people villains, and so nobody feels bad for them when we take their money, right? The insatiable thirst of government means that if you prosper and you get to a certain point, and then that same system starts gunning for you, would you want to be treated like they are treating Elon Musk right now? Would you? Yes, no? The answer is absolutely not. To be able to be singled out and targeted and taken from without any justification, except for the majority of pitchfork holders and torchbearers, right, decided that they were going to come after you, and that's it.
Yeah, I mean, I heard someone recently here say, oh, well, who needs to make that much money? Who needs that much money? You don't need that much money. And I said, that's not up to you. Who are you to say how much money I need to make? If I want to work hard and I want to grind all the time and I don't have a lot of dependents and it's just me and this is something I'm into and I'm getting paid for it, who are you to tell me it's now too much?
That's envy. So we did 3 of the deadly sins on here. We had gluttony, greed, and envy.
Yeah.
Right? And
no, that's not one. That's not one.
All right, so since we're talking about Elon Musk, let's talk about SpaceX yesterday. It was really good, and this is timely. Did you watch the launch, by the way?
No.
Okay.
I did not.
Starship Launch 9 happened last night, and I'm sitting on my couch with my little notebook. No, I'm
Popcorn?
not. No, I'm got my notebook.
Okay.
And so, leading up to every launch, I'm looking at from an engineering standpoint what the benchmarks are will make this a successful launch. right? I know what they're trying to accomplish. I know what they're going to try different than the last time. I know where they're working on every step of the way. And I'm watching it. It's like my Super Bowl where I get to check those things off the list. Did you just call me a nerd? Come on. But anyway.
But remember, you're not educated, though.
I'm not educated.
You don't even know why you bother. Okay,
yeah. So if I followed Elon Musk and SpaceX from the very beginning on the Falcon 9 early on. And it's a amazing story. If you ever watch the Falcon 9 production, the dude didn't have a lot of money to start this. So every time he put a rocket out on the launch pad and it blew up, that represented a large portion of his funding for doing this. And every time, do you know I think it was like 7 explosions total terrible on the Falcon 9, and they had money for 1 more. They put it out on the launch pad, and you had to put yourselves in the position knowing that if this one blows up like the other 6 did, that I'm done. Like, this is it. Willing to put it on a launch pad, and thankfully that one cleared the hurdles of being a successful test, and they could start producing. So Falcon 9 rocket is the utility rocket where it's small payload. They use it to take the capsules up to the International Space Station. They launch satellites out of it. This thing has, probably thousands of launches at this point, and you never see a failure now. But the 7 that almost bankrupted him in the beginning, that was, white knuckle. Right. Yeah. So Starship is about 100 times more complex than the Falcon 9. All right. So they know a lot about rocketry now and the technologies that go in it. But the Starship is like beyond anything that anybody's ever tried to produce at this point. I watched it in the very inception when it was this little canister that they were just launching. They had it tethered to the ground and it only went like 30 feet off the ground. Right. And so I watched it from that version of it to today's version that's 100-foot tall, this huge advancement in technology. But anyway, getting back to it, I'm so impressed with the learning curve on producing something at such a massive scale that is so complicated, and watching those advancements happen in real time.
Which is why we find it so ridiculous to say Elon Musk is simply just greed. Like, can you imagine the years and the depth of understanding of mathematics, of science, of physics, of technology, of engineering, the education, the trial and error, the money, the effort over so many years of what it is he does and has accomplished to be the richest man in the world that he has become? That's not greed. That's not something he was just given. That's not something that he just keeps everyone else from and give it to me. Like, if you put that much time and energy and brain power into something, and then you became successful against all of your obstacles and all odds, you achieved something so great, and to be called greedy because you achieved money from it. Elon, if I were Elon, I would punch people right in their face.
So okay, let's play that out. So each one of these starships that they almost know, all of them are going to end up in a fiery demise over the ocean. Each one costs about $120 million. So let's just say the guy that has a lot of money decides he's not doing it. Who's developing that rocket when there's zero incentive? You know what the only incentive is? And he's guided that he wants to go to Mars. This might not even be a productive deal. He's developing and knowing that there's not going to be a lot of money to be made in ferrying us to another planet, right?
Yeah.
So if he's not going to do it and there's no profit incentive, would you think the greedy guy is going to do the thing that he can't even see dollar signs? Or do you think the guy that believes in an end and he just happens to have the resources to do it, the non-greedy guy?
Yeah.
So anyway, so that we're on test number 9. Each one costs $120 million. So he is lit on fire over $1 billion in just hardware costs, not even the R&D and the engineering and everything else, just the functional cost of that thing is $120 million. So how much money do you want him to have so he takes this project to fruition, and then humanity benefits from whatever we get from the space race, the technology that gets us there, and then maybe having a lifeboat of a planet if the Earth ever gets destroyed, or colonizing an entire freaking planet.
or learning
Oh,
about our solar system,
Oh, my
or
goodness.
finding aliens.
So
Kinds of
back
stuff.
to Starship. So really, there were three things that they were looking to get out of this deal. Number one, this is the ninth one. So they've got some data on the launch phase. They've done that. The hot staging, they've done that already. This was about putting the Starship at a more violent angle. Mars's atmosphere is really it's really thin, right? So when a spacecraft is coming down through Earth's atmosphere, there's a lot of friction and it slows down considerably. When it's going through Mars's atmosphere, it's going to be speedy, right? So what they wanted to test
Crash
yesterday
landing.
was if they put it at a more advanced angle, structurally, could the rocket handle it? So really, this is a yes, no. If they put it at a violent angle and it splits in two, now they know that they're getting a feel for what angle is going to be required if they go through Mars and if the structure can handle it. So number one, they were on purpose taking it to a more violent angle that could have resulted in a blow up. Number two, they're taking they're turning off one of the engines on when it's coming down to sort of like mimic a failure. Like they're catching these things in a big tower. And so if they lose an engine while they're getting close to the tower, it could wreck the tower and crash into things. So what they were going to do is take it to the ocean, cut one of the engines on purpose, and see if they could take a different engine and make the thing stable so at least they wouldn't crash into things. So again, a test that was probably going to end in destruction or a high likelihood. And they were going to do that one twice. The third thing was they were going to get to orbit. They were going to release a mock payload out in once they haven't gotten to orbit before, by the way. The 8, 7, and 6 got close, started flipping, lost some controls, and ended up crashing. So yesterday was the first time that they actually got into orbit. So then the next phase was the mock release of the Starlink satellites that weren't real, but just seeing if they could do it. Anyway, they launched, they did the hot stage separation, they did the flip maneuver, they got into orbit. So the first 4 things that were on the list, total success. They got to orbit and they went to open the doors and the door didn't open. So they couldn't launch the whatever. So if you're going to consider this a failure, that was a failure, that they had a mechanical failure on the payload door from opening. And then on the rocket, they have these attitude controllers that basically are fuel that as the rocket's in orbit, it maneuvers, like if it starts attitude down, attitude up, it keeps it stable. And the pressurization, they had a fuel line that must have broken or something when they got into orbit. And so they couldn't write the attitude on the rocket. And so it started tumbling and they couldn't fix it. So anyway, if you're gonna call this either a success or failure, I'm going to call it they got further in this one than they did the last time because they actually achieved orbit. The failures would be the payload door didn't open and they lost the nozzles for keeping the attitude and stop it from tumbling. There you go. But if you read headlines this morning, what do you think they said? Do you think it was a successful mission or an unsuccessful? It blew up, which in every task list that I had, blowing up was probably what was going to happen. What do you think the headline?
They said it's unsuccessful.
Oh yeah,
God.
They said it launched, right, but blew up. They want to make sure that they put a little highlighter on the blow up part because they think if you don't pay attention to it at all, they think blowing up equals unsuccessful.
Yeah. Oh, that means everything went wrong.
Yeah, but talk to me who pays attention to what they were trying to achieve, and I'll tell you what actually went right and wrong.
Again, how does Musk not go around punching people?
I'm telling you. I'm telling you.
I'm like, do you have any idea what we just accomplished?
Jeffrey says Elon didn't even have a green card in America till he helped Trump, so he illegal person. BS. Go take that crap elsewhere. There are so many emerald mines and Canadian citizen and that is just so wrong. And you just want to hate on Elon because let me tell you, it's envy. And I think you should find Jesus and take the mortal sins and eliminate them from your list. So if you take all of the envy and all of those vices off your list and you still hate Elon, cool, we'll talk. But until now, you're just envious of the dude. What did it say? Tesla's having problems. Watch the stock market. Well, whatever, dude. I'm totally dismissing you because that's total BS.
Now his Tesla having problems. Watch. Why is Tesla having problems?
Oh, I don't know why.
Oh, is it because Tesla's a poor product? Is it because Elon is a poor business mind? No.
It's because the liberals tried to cancel him, and the brand will survive your canceling. Like the Dylan Mulvaney actually almost put out, Bud Light out of business because the Republicans jumped on that one. And then the liberals don't like Elon Musk, so they jumped on that one. So do you think this is a healthy expression of people? Like I like to support people that I agree with, right? But I don't target people that I disagree with and want them hurt or injured. But do you think it's a cool society where if you disagree with you, they try to destroy you? Because I don't think you would enjoy that if you were on the receiving end.
Yeah, they absolutely do. Anything that they disagree with, or if they don't even have to disagree with you. But if they want to win, if they want to be the person in power, be the person that is whatever, and you have just as good, if not better ideas and maybe deserve it more, that doesn't matter. We can discredit you. We can make you seem crazy. We can make you seem dangerous. We can make you seem that people can't trust you because I want to win, not you. So it doesn't matter what someone's doing. They can always be painted in a certain light by someone who has an agenda to push.
Yeah, we should all determine, like your mom always told you, treat others how you want to be treated. And you can make the decision whether or not you treat Elon by reversing it, pointing it at you and saying, would I enjoy that? And then you could decide super easy whether or not you should do that or want to do that or want to have happen to that to someone like Elon Musk.
How do you feel? This might be slightly off the subject, but kind of going back to when we were talking about wages and stuff. How do you feel about this idea of no tax on tips? Do you think that could go south in any way? Do you think that's something we should have always had? No tax on tips?
It's a good question because I'm 50-50 on it. I'm split. So it was cash tips, by the way, not all tips.
So not like a tip on a card.
So if most servers were not claiming their cash tips, it's really meaningless, right? Because nobody was claiming it and paying taxes on the stuff that they can hide from the government. So it doesn't matter a whole lot. It's not going to constitute a whole lot. When it comes to restaurant workers, I don't think anybody should be taxed. So if you erode any taxes, I'm a happy guy, right? But I don't think it does a whole lot, but it was very popular for politicians to support. And it was kind of like, if this is the entry into cutting more taxes, I'm all for it.
I was kind of wondering the same thing because I've been a server before, and I remember the first time I ever got a serving job, and they were explaining to me how this works. Like, well, here's your pay, blah blah blah, plus tips, and you have to claim everything. And I'm like, okay, so what do I do? Like, end of the night, I take all my tips and I count it up and I tell you what it is. And everybody, my coworkers, managers, everybody was like, well, yes, but
we don't do.
And I was like, what do you mean? And they're like, maybe like this pocket and this pocket, count up this pocket and tell them. And I'm like, so I just part of it? Like, stupid, naive me didn't realize. I was like, but do I have to claim it all? They're like, yes, you have to claim it all. And I was like, so do I give you it all? And they're like,
you weren't reading between the lines, Kelin.
Like, oh, I see what you guys, they're like, claim it all, but I'm not going to count it. You just tell me. They'd say, you just tell me what you made tonight. And I'd be like, oh, okay. So then I was like, okay, so people are doing that. What's the point? Like, if they're like, all right, no taxes on tips, you're kind of in the same boat, aren't you? Like,
I wonder if you can tip a politician, like if Pfizer came along and like, Mister, you're a great legislator. Here's a $1 million tip. Now they don't have to pay taxes on it, right? Could they be qualified?
It's called a bribe. They just have a different term for it.
Yeah, I'm not a real big fan of the whole like low wage. I mean, I know why they do it. Because obviously restaurants go through long periods of not being busy. And if you're counting up all of your labor that's not collecting any food or doing anything, you cap off your labor costs and have them make it up during so it makes mathematical sense why they do that. But I don't know that if I could live with that. Now, when you work one of those jobs, did the tips outweigh the lack in wage?
It could, I guess.
Did it for you?
God, it was a long time ago. I think so. I think it was. It depends on if you're busy. It depends on what kind of restaurant. Obviously, a higher bill, you're going to make more. I was not at like a fancy restaurant, so I think it ebbed and flowed. Like it was sometimes yes, sometimes no. It felt good because I always had cash, so you see money all the time, even if it's not a lot. I also wasn't living on my own at the time. I was still living with my parents, so I guess could you like live off of that? Probably not. It wouldn't be consistent, I don't think.
Now, the taxes on benefits, Social Security, Medicaid, and you get a check from the government, and paying taxes on the benefit that came from a tax makes absolutely no sense to me. Why would you tax a benefit? I don't get that.
What do you tax on a benefit?
So you get a Social Security check?
Huh?
There are federal taxes taken out of the Social Security check and sent back to the government. The government just sent it to you, right?
Yeah.
So, and then they're just clawing back a little bit of something they sent. That makes no sense whatsoever.
Why do they do it?
They're stupid. Politicians and
Just
government.
to get you used to seeing taxes, probably.
No, there probably wasn't when that benefit was issued. And they're like, hey, there's a pool of money over there that we're not getting any taxes on. If we tax that, like they're always thinking of ways to take money from you. It's insatiable thirst. They'll always be inventing new ways to take money from you. So anytime they take taxes off, I'm happy with it.
So let's go back then to property tax.
Yes.
Benefits, pros, cons.
You should never have a perpetual tax on anything. Anything. It should be a transactional tax. So even like payroll taxes, there should be no tax on paychecks. It should all be consumption based because it's unfair in every way. So if you spend it, you pay taxes. If you don't spend it, you don't pay any taxes. Let the people that want your money to compete for it, right? So that you spend more money out into the marketplace.
Is that how like when people say, oh, well, these billionaires aren't paying taxes on this, they're like, because they're not spending that. That's not where they're.
And that's like the common person doesn't realize that Elon Musk is not collecting a paycheck. You know where taxes come from? Issuing a payroll check. And so if somebody doesn't have a payroll check, they're not taxed because they're not taking a wage from the company that they own. Right. So they don't understand.
So it's like make them pay more of nothing.
Maybe, yeah. So double their taxes. They're not collecting the paycheck.
By all means, go ahead. It'll be just more of nothing.
Exactly. Like they don't understand.
So what do they think would do? Like if, okay, let's say we vote someone in and they're like, that's it. Everybody that's a billionaire, double tax. Okay. And does it take then to see that it doesn't help anything and it doesn't work? Is that when we get off of that idea?
Well, they don't really want that because the people they want a wealth tax. They want to take a person that has more than they think that they need, and they want to confiscate a portion of that proportionally.
Because they say, well, who needs that?
Right.
And then we say, it's not up to you to say what they need.
And that's what property tax is. It takes the increased value of a home, one that you have not sold. It looks at the value of your house, and they skim money off of you more than they did when the house was less more. But you're like, you're creating more liability for me. And I didn't sell my house. I'm never going to sell my house. So the increase in value, once I buy it, meaningless to you. So if you want to charge me a sales tax, I bought it for X amount of dollars and you want 8% on it. I'll give you your 8% and I'm done. Unless I sell it and then buy another house and then I pay another 8%. But charging you based on the value of something that you never sell is not even really a tax.
That seems like corrupt.
Yeah, but they want to corrupt. So let's just say I'm a CEO and I say, I don't want any kind of wage at all. I don't want any kind of salary whatsoever. I want you to pay me in stock, right? Uh-huh. That's almost like me giving you a house to work for me. And then so when I give you the house, I've transferred a value and the government can come in and say, okay, cool. I'll take whatever he just gave you because that was the value. Now you have the house. That would be like the government saying, I know I taxed you on this already, but it's worth a little bit more. So give me more money. You'd be like, no, I'm not giving you that. I paid taxes on that already.
So we have our house.
Yes.
You pay whatever for it, whether you buy it or build it. Then, and I get emails from the broker we use every so often that just says, by the way, your house is now worth this. Your house is now worth this. And I look at it, I was like, oh, cool. But I don't want to ever sell. This to me is my forever home. That's nice to know. It went up in value, but it's priceless to me. I'm not selling. So my taxes go up based off of what that email says.
Yeah, your property taxes are reassessed every couple years, and then they set your taxes based on the value of the property, not what you originally paid.
That could put someone out.
That's exactly what's happening.
This was my forever home in a little town that I was contributing to, that I was keeping in business, that my money was going to. I was making this house now nice. And with no intent to sell or me to benefit in any way financially, you cost me money. Now what do I start doing? Oh, I guess I can't afford landscaping anymore. Oh, I guess I can't afford to fix this.
Well, think about the 65.
I can't afford. Your house goes to shit.
Let's just say 65-year-old retires, not working anymore, collecting Social Security, which is tied to the cost of living, right? Mm-hmm. And you get a letter in the mail that says, oh, by the way, the value of your house that you're not selling, you're going to live there till you die, doubled in the last 10 years. We reassessed, and now your property taxes are doubled. Now, instead of $600, you're paying $1,200. The person that is making the same amount of money every month had an expense go up with no new value being added to anything. That's just a wealth tax. It's a crime.
And then what is going to ultimately happen is that person now does not have the money to maintain, and the value goes down, or they have to leave the town. Now the town just lost the population, i.e. the income that was coming in, because now nobody can afford to live there anymore.
That's exactly right.
So it doesn't even, it hurts everyone.
It does. It's stupid, and it hurts everyone. So I was
happy in my just blind, naive, not thinking about that. Now I'm thinking about it, and I'm like, what a crap.
It's a grift. And that's what government does is and honestly, as long as they go after one of their villains instead of you'll totally tolerate that kind of grift. I'm a principled person, so I don't care if they're coming after me or not. They came after Bob, and that's not fair to Bob. And I would not tolerate if they did that to me. So I'm going to defend Bob, even if I have no, dogs in that fight.
And now, oh God, this is making so much sense. Now the town that is suffering because the property taxes got so high, people couldn't afford it. So they're either moving out, or their homes are going to shit, or they can't spend money in their local economy because all the money's gone to the property tax. Now the businesses that have buildings can't survive there because their rents are going up.
Yep. And their property taxes go up.
And I just heard there's this local business that everybody loves, and they're like, we're about to be done. We can't, the landlord's raising the rent on this whole plaza, and we can't afford it. Well, who's the bad guy? Now the landlord's the bad guy, right? Well, you're just a greedy jerk who wanted to raise this.
But these complicated math cycles are what keeps it from the public understanding. If you make it complicated enough, all you'll do is, the headline like SpaceX crashed a rocket. The simple version of it, where if you increase property taxes and you create inflation, you create high commodities and you up the labor costs, and then someone's rent goes up, not be able to connect to all of that cost increase came down to the consumers who made that happen.
And then you say, who's the bad guy in this? That dude with the really nice house over
there. That's exactly right. That's how mind numb we are to what the real cause of this problem. It comes down to two things: consumers making poor decisions, and government, right, getting an insatiable thirst for spending other people's money. That's it. So you cut down on taxes, you deregulate, and you get the curve still happens, but you get a much lower curve.
Okay, so let's work it this way.
Yeah.
Do away with property tax.
Yes.
Get rid of that whole problem.
Yeah.
What could that hurt?
Every city service that relies on tax money to work, your police, your fire, your roads, every civil service job that there is.
So if you want your police, fire, and infrastructure to be prospering and doing good and people to be paid well, you want your snow plows out when it's shitty out, you got to pay more in property.
So do you think taking money and sending it to the federal government or the state only to lead back to your community is the most efficient way of getting money to your local fire? I could go down to the fire department. Let's just say, take the total number of houses that are in your area, and you take the cost of the fire department and you divide it equally amongst all of the houses that are there, right? And you make a service payment. You collect all your things, snow plowing and fire and police. You divide it equally amongst all citizens, and everybody writes their check to the civil services. Now, it came from your community, no administrating fees, no transfer fees, no chance that it gets to government and they decide not to give it back. You make direct payment to your city services, and then they get to say, look how great we're doing. And you feel good about making that payment every time.
Yeah. And it's disclosed where every dime goes. Literally, why could we not just have your local government building push out here's everybody's salaries, here's everybody's work, here's what everybody does, and here's where your money goes. Yeah, I'd be like, oh, I know Officer so-and-so, he's doing a bang up job, and yeah, let's renew this and let's renew this, and hey, this road got paved and it's great. Or maybe you're like, you know what? I think this dude's corrupt. I want him out. Our roads are shitty no matter how much money. We're changing that. And then you have a say in how your money is used, and everybody wins.
And schools, by the way, Joe pointed out that schools.
I want my school to be better.
It connects the people of the city directly to the people where they're providing the services, and they will either reward them with paying them or vote them out. Not because they got this free money from the government that insulates them from the scrutiny of some of the public or most of the public.
Yeah.
They get directly responsible for the people who write the freaking check.
Yes. Why don't we do this?
Okay, I'll throw another curveball at you.
Okay.
All right, so you live in a high density population that has a lot of civilians. They get more money and thus would have better schools and services than maybe a 10-person city that has to have the same kind of services. There are some cities and townships and villages, right, that they don't have enough people in their community to support the services they already have.
Maybe it's a big rural area and lots of land, not a lot of people.
So even if they took the services and they divided it, there wouldn't be enough money to pay for the actual services. So they would have to figure out a way to get by on reduced services rather than the stuff that now the government sends you the money already. So you don't have to worry about a shortfall based on the tax base or the public. And maybe that's not even a thing, because if you're getting a majority of your stuff from property taxes, then there has to be enough citizens to at least do that. So maybe that's not even a curveball worth discussing. But I am sure there's some school districts that make out because we filter it through, because the government can pick ones that they want to send it to more and, grift more money through certain areas than others, pick winners and losers types of things. But I think my way is better because you decentralize it, get the taxpayer paying directly for those services, and services will get better or could be better.
So again, could you not help your school by opening up the enrollment to anybody who wants to go there?
Sure. They would have to compete for enrollment. Absolutely. Because then you have tuitions that can offset some of that. Do you think your taxes would be higher or lower if you took up all the aggregate of the money that you send in to the state to then get distributed down to your county? Do you think that when that goes through, you lose that efficiency? So maybe only 80 cents of every dollar gets spent. You cut that out, so now there's more money. Do you think those services will get more money or less money by direct paying from its citizens?
Direct paying, they probably get more money.
I agree. I think it would. And honestly, think about this. Let's just say the fire department wants to buy a new engine, like new fire engine, and they don't want to take it out of the tax bill that we pay as part of utilities. So they go in on the news and they say, Youngstown wants to buy this thing and we're going to sell bonds to everyone. And so the public is like, oh, I think we do need that. And the public makes a separate bond issuance, and they buy it based on how good of a job they did. A fire department couldn't buy a truck that the population didn't think that they needed. If they don't, then they would have to make the case of why they need the thing. That connection is everything between the people that are governed and the people that are spending money on behalf of the governed.
Then why don't, I'm trying to be like devil's advocate. Why would this not work? Could it possibly ever be that the general public would not understand that maybe hey, we really do need money on this. It's important. And the general public's like, no, it's not. Why would you need that? Because they don't work in the field or the industry, and maybe they would make bad decisions.
But if it was the same money, If it was drafted the same way property taxes are, you connect it to your mortgage and it drafts automatically versus you on a monthly or a yearly basis have a bill that comes in the mail. I mean, I don't know. But like I said, consumers need to have a connection with that money, or else once it's disconnected, right, then the consumer doesn't even know it exists, and they take it for granted, and then they use it as a weapon until someone like me comes back and says, whoa, hold up. Like, you don't know enough to even have an opinion on this.
Yeah. Like, if you don't work it and see it, then that is why so many people get told, oh, well, he's the bad guy. Oh, okay. Must be the bad guy because you don't know how it works. That
is the freaking strategy. And that's what politics does. And that's why I want way less of them, because they're really good at poisoning the minds of the individual to hate somebody who's not them.
Okay. So the hate for Elon Musk.
Yeah.
When Elon Musk blows up these rockets and stuff, and like you said, it could literally be like millions of dollars down the drain.
Yeah.
Who paid for that? Where'd those millions come from?
It came from SpaceX. And SpaceX was operating privately. And then they started, after Falcon 9 was successful, then they started selling payload. So if some GPS company or some foreign government wanted to launch a satellite, they pay a contract to SpaceX, they load it up on a Falcon, they go up, they dispatch it, right? Didn't make a lot of money, but made enough to keep developing Falcon 9. And then they started their own Starlink, which then they put their own satellites on a Falcon 9, launched them up, started selling internet service to people to get here. So now they're funded through payload delivery to orbit and also Starlink satellite.
So he's basically an entrepreneur that started multiple businesses that can all sort of fund each other.
Yeah.
Can he also get funding from other billionaires? People that
he has. Like, so yeah, when he bought X or Twitter at the time, he got he sold investment percentage to other people. So I think there's like 7 people in that group.
So the idea of nobody needs that much money and let's go ahead and take money from billionaires, would that not then defund all kinds of exploration, research into lots of different, it could be space, it could be anything. Would we not then
pick your inventor? All right. I don't care. Thomas Edison, anybody who invented products over the series of their life, Nikola Tesla, right? And let's just say on their first product, it's a success. And then you're like, he's made enough money on that. Get rid of him. Everything that came after that, you as a society would be deprived of. So let's minus everything that came out after that. Now you have to answer the question, who's going to do that stuff? And if it's nobody, then all you've done is you flatten the innovation curve. It's nothing now. Nobody wants to do it because you took the person that could do it and you remove the resources to do whatever he's going to do next. It's a failed, flawed logic, 100%. Yeah.
Why would anybody want to work hard and make money and be inventive if you know that when you reach success of that, you're now the bad guy simply because you did so?
Right.
Just because
and even like Bezos is less altruistic than Elon Musk is. So Bezos, Amazon invested in it, saves everybody a bunch of money by buying Chinese products. So what he did was he spun off some of his wealth into Blue Origin, which is a competing rocketry company that goes against SpaceX. Both are developing. The Blue Origin is where Katy Perry went up to space. Yeah. So he took some of that wealth and did another thing. You deprive him of that, and now we don't have Blue Origin. And I think we need lots of rocket companies, not less rocket companies.
And how did Jeff Bezos make all his money? Off of people willing to
value a product,
local economy to help people overseas and get cheaper goods. And
yeah, on the aggregate, though, that was just a monster that was created by consumerism. Right. It wasn't him. He didn't say, we're going to screw American companies. He just provided,
this is good business.
He provided a conduit that whatever you buy is going to go flow through that conduit.
It's like we hurt each other and then wonder why we're all in pain and we just go blame someone else.
Yeah. Instead of saying, Oh, wait, I just bought it from Amazon. I could have taken the effort to buy something from America, but I didn't. Let's blame Bezos because he put the bottles.
He's greedy. He's a greedy billionaire.
Yeah, he put the bottle so close to me. It's not my fault that I drank from it, but he put it close to me.
Yes.
But that's envy. This is. Listen, I don't Bible thump very often, but I do ridicule secularists and people that are atheists and agnostics, because what they do is they don't know the foundation of support that we had. And when everything reveals itself, the slippery slope guy said, hey, if you do this, you're going to get all of the vices with none of the pressures that push up against those vices. And when they happen, I'm like, see, I told you so. So if you want everybody to be envious and nobody telling them not to envy, this is what you get.
We also need a deadly sin of being like gullible or something, or stupid.
Oh, I love that.
Like, you don't even know. Maybe you did that. Maybe you didn't do this out of envy. Maybe you did it because you don't waterfall it like this, and you don't see this leads to this, which leads to this, which leads to this.
Oh, sloth. That's the same thing. Sloth is stupidity.
Sloth. Well, sloth is like laziness.
No. Sloth, you put it in one category. Sloth would mean that you didn't pursue the details to an end. You're too lazy to do the research, to have an understanding for it, to know enough. That's sloth. Every vice, I'm telling you.
Listen, if we could just find lust and wrath. Oh, I'm sure wrath is in there somewhere. For sure. You go out.
We said it. Like if you
angry about it all, like someone else's fault.
You want to destroy Teslas. So you have wrath and anger against Tesla, so you want to destroy them. That's wrath. We talked about and we don't have time to go into this because BJ already yelled us.
Yeah, our warning.
But the four horsemen of the apocalypse. Do you think we're end of world times? I think we're getting close.
I don't know a whole lot. I've heard of the four horsemen of the apocalypse. I don't know a lot about that.
So we're going to talk about this. I want you to go read Revelations. Okay. And I want you to look into the predictions about how the world's going to end and what is going to be presented when it starts happening. And we're going to talk about the four horsemen.
Oh boy.
Okay. And don't be scared. Okay, be scared a little bit. Carter says, thank you for a great, interesting show, both of you, and especially for not talking about West Branch. You're very welcome, Carter.
Thank you, Carter. Thank you for watching.
We'll be back tomorrow. So Thursday, you'll get Joe and Kelin in the morning. Have a great day, everyone. We'll see you then.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to this show on Youngstown Studio. This is original Youngstown content. Feel free to share our videos and tell your friends about us. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and